Good afternoon from Germany. Here's Pascal again. It is Wednesday and we have more economic news after the roller coaster yesterday of CPI day. So don't waste time. Let's start right away with our favorite index, Nasdaq, or my favorite at least. So we see a lot of movement yesterday. I was wrong that we won't go lower. We tested lower levels here on the opening, but then we had the dip buyer stepping in as expected yesterday, and we had a retest of day's high here right at the Fibonacci level. That's why I draw them. The lines here, you see the low point was a little bit below, just to take on some more stop losses here from the bulls. And then we had this huge rally within 45 minutes from day lows to day highs and back again. So a lot of roller coaster, and we ended near day highs yesterday. So let's see where we are on a day chart for Nasdaq. It's higher than the day before yesterday, but it's about 50%. We are still near the 50% Fibonacci level here, 50% between the highs of February 2nd and the lows of February 10th. So still some room to the upside here. We are still in an uptrend, making higher lows and higher highs. But yeah, we will soon see where the market wants to go. I still believe that we can reach the 12,800 I mentioned yesterday. So we didn't go there yesterday because the numbers were worse than expected. But you see, the markets can rise even on worse than expected numbers. So therefore, never try to predict the outcome of the news, and always trade direction and not the news itself. So today the same levels apply as yesterday. So the lows of yesterday, the highs of yesterday are still the same levels, which are important because we still have the Fibonacci levels there, as you can see. So the 61.8% Fibonacci at 12,677. This is slightly above the highs of yesterday, or the high point of pre-market here. The 50% Fibonacci is near 12,600. This was an important level pre-market yesterday where we tried to break above. I had a long position there. Could close it right before the news at 12,610 points. Then we went down and higher. So yeah, I stepped in new positions. You have seen this during the live stream yesterday. I went into one micro Nasdaq future, so a really small position here at a little bit early, 12,537 points. But I went on with more longs here down at the 12,425 points. So I almost reached the lows here. Lows was 12,417 points. So just 8 points above the low point. I managed to go in with a bigger one, an NQ future. So this is 10 times Nasdaq. And I managed to close half of the position here right before the closing yesterday. So this was a nice run, but I still have some longs left, but it's really a small position, only 5 micro Nasdaqs, and I just want to keep this position because I still think that we can reach the 12,800 level here. So let's see if we will reach it today with the news. So let's see the news in about 10 minutes. Here is the economic calendar. In 10 minutes we will have retail sales. So this is a 3-star event, but not as important as yesterday CPI. But of course there will be some movement, and we should see this if there is a difference between the forecast and the actual outcome. So the forecast for core retail sales is 0.8% after minus 1.1%. So it's positive again. But if you look back to the previous numbers, you can see that in the previous month we had a lower expectation, so minus 0.4% and positive 0.2%, but the actual numbers came out worse. So this time the forecast is pretty high, so I'm curious how the outcome is, but probably it will be worse than the forecast as long as the economy is not driving really hot. We have seen the job numbers last week, which were really hot. But yeah, it can be completely different here with retail sales. So therefore, I do not want to bet on the outcome just staying patient and see what the market wants to take as direction. We also have a Tuesday event, New York Empire State Manufacturing Index, not so important like retail sales. And we have ECB President Lagarde speaking in about half an hour. So this is not really important for the US market, but it can also cause some movement in the forex currencies like Euro USD. Okay, so this is the important thing for today pre-market. In about 7 minutes we will have the news. Let's just see how the FedWatch tool is showing for the interest rate expectations. So next meeting in 35 days, still some time to go, but expectancies went higher as we discussed already yesterday because the numbers came in a little bit hotter with the inflation, and there we see the new expectancies 87 or 88% for 25 basis points move from 4.75% up to 5% and 12% for 50 basis points. I still don't believe that we will see 50 basis points, but you never know if the Federal Reserve wants to surprise. And we now see that the expectancies went up a lot. You see here now about 50% for 5.5% as the highest interest rate level. So the expectancies moved a lot, especially for the next Federal Reserve meetings in June, July, and only one drop here at the end of the year in December. So there's still some way to go. So the highest point is now 5.5%, and currently we are at 4.75%. So there would still be 75 basis points to go, and you see the expectancy is 25 basis points per Federal Reserve meeting. Let's see if this will shift back within the next economic numbers or if we will stay like this. But this is really hot here, 5.5%. I think already 5% is a high number for the economy. It will be difficult to handle for most of the companies to have this high interest rate level for a year or maybe more than a year. But let's see how the expectations will shift until the next meeting here. So let's have a look at Euro USD. It's still sideways trading. So the day before yesterday we went higher up to 1.08, but then we came back and closed at about the same level in the sideways trading range. And today it's going down. So it's not a good sign for the stock market when the money is pulling back into US dollar and not showing that they want to have the risk on mode, and that there are some outflows of the safe haven US dollar and some inflows back into stocks and other riskier assets. So back to our commodities. Natural gas still in the sideways trading here. We went higher yesterday by around 6 or 7% and had highs of $2.70 right at the upper level of the sideways trading range, and today the same level again, but trading a little bit lower, about 2% lower. So we wait for the breakout here. I'm in a short put position. Parabolic is already showing an uptrend, so this is an early indicator showing that we probably see a shift of direction. ADX is still in a downtrend, but yeah, let's see. Sometimes it takes some days or weeks in a sideways trading phase until we see a change of direction to the upside. Minimum target would be $3 because this was a previous support level here, but it could also rally more. The more it rallies, the better it is. But I can also make money just by sideways trading with a short put because time is in my favor. Crude oil. I have no position here in crude oil. We talked about this yesterday. Crude oil went higher but moved a little bit back. Just a normal thing here on the way to the upside. Still some room up to the $82 level and the resistance area here between $82 and $83. Wix went down a lot yesterday. You can see here we opened above 20 and closed below 19. The closing was 18.9. So fear went out of the market because it was almost in line with CPI, a little bit worse than expected, but you have seen the stock market rising and therefore the fear went out of the market. Wix is low right now. Gold is interesting because gold is still pulling back. We have seen the shift of expectations for the interest rate levels, and therefore we all know gold should pull back. Why? Because there are higher opportunity costs. If the interest rate levels are higher, then there's a higher cost for holding gold, because you won't receive dividends and you won't receive any interest payments, and therefore gold is pulling back right now. So this is the short overview. Just one stock here. Tesla is trying to push back to the previous highs. The previous high point was $214, and pre-market we are right at this level. So I will show you on a day chart. Previous high point here, 214.00, and pre-market high today, $214.50. Let's see if we will break above here. So it was pretty nice to see. You can see here with my Fibonacci levels, previous high point, previous low point. So the rejection here was right at the 23.6 Fibonacci level. So this was the low point the day before yesterday. And you see this is a doji. So a change of direction. Like here, this is a doji, this is a doji. So we see these change of directions on a day chart. So pretty clean uptrend here. And we already discussed this. There's some room here back to the $230 level. So still some room here of about 6% to the upside from the current price levels to reach the $230 area. There should be a little bit of resistance, but it is a clear uptrend on a day and on a week chart. Yes, Tesla is still downtrending on a monthly chart time frame, but we never know how far the pullback will be. So you still see lower lows, lower highs on a monthly time frame, but it can pull back heavy up to 230, 250, and it would still be in a downtrend on a monthly time frame. So don't short it too early. I shorted with an options trade, a 250 strike short call and a 270 strike long call. So it's the bear call spread, and I can still make money when Tesla is rising, just not too far, too high, and then I can still make money on this trade here. What time frame are you looking at, Carlos? The image is slightly blurry for me, so it's difficult to tell. Oh, then you should change. Then you should change your image size, because I'm streaming in HD, so it should be possible to see it unblurry. But this here is a day chart for Tesla. So I'm changing here with the charts between 5-minute and day charts, but this here currently is a day chart. So back to the news, because in 1 minute we will already have the news. And there is Nasdaq on a 1 minute time frame. News are out. And we see a little bit of movement to the downside. 535 points current low, so 50 points to the downside. No big move, but let's see the news. So the news are out, and the number is, here. Core retail sales, where's the number? Still waiting for the number, but New York Empire State Manufacturing Index is a little bit better than expected, minus 5.8 instead of minus 18. So this is a good sign for economy, but also a sign for maybe higher inflation risk. Retail sales is 3%. Wow, this is a lot higher than expected. Yeah, this of course causes a lot of inflation fears and therefore maybe higher interest rate expectations. So not really good for the Federal Reserve. This is not what the Federal Reserve wants to see. They want to have a cool down of economy and not higher retail sales. But the market is already pulling back, because now there's a little bit of indifference between, is it now a risk of higher interest rate levels? So too high inflation risk is higher interest rate levels. This is a fear. But on the other side, this is also good, because if the economy is growing, there won't be a recession. So there won't be any reason for a pullback in the stocks, in the stock market. So yeah, and now you see the indifference between these buyers and sellers here. So at first the pullback because of the risk of higher interest rates. But then, yeah, economy is growing, it's still working, no recession. So the market can rise again. So you can always argue about if the market has to rise or to fall here. And therefore, I would never predict the outcome. So you have seen, I would be completely wrong. I said 0.8% is a high number, and now we have 2.3%, a lot higher than the forecast. But the market is holding its level. So interesting to see, almost like yesterday. The same thing happened when the market just turned to the downside and went back to the upside. So probably we can see the same movement like yesterday. At first a dip down because of a fear of higher interest rate levels, too high inflation, and then a rally again because there won't be any recession if the economy is still strong. So let's see if the same thing happens. So the same levels are still in place. We retested pre-market lows. As you can see, this was pre-market low during the Asian session, or right when the Asian session closed, 12,531 points, and the low was 12,534 points. So therefore it's always important to have your levels in place if you want to day trade. I'm normally not a day trader, rather a swing trader, but yesterday I day traded a little bit with some small contracts sizes. So no big movement here today, even if it's a 3-star event and a lot of difference to the forecast with the actual numbers. But yeah, it's working like expected. I'm still waiting for the 12,800 before we should see some more fears between 12,800 and 13,000 level. Let's go to ES future to see S&P 500. Where's my future chart here? ES. So here we see on a day chart, yesterday was a big doji. A lot of movement to the up and down side, but we closed where we opened and it's pulling back now. So probably a retest of the 4,100 level, maybe the lows of yesterday before we can go higher. You already see here parabolic went negative here as well as on Nasdaq, so showing early signs of a downtrend. But here we also see on a day chart the early downtrend here in parabolic, but Nasdaq is looking a little bit better on a day chart than the ES future, because here you see we had green candles and not a doji candle showing a reversal. So Nasdaq is a little bit stronger than S&P 500, but it's showing some signs of weakness on the market overall on ES future chart. So therefore I want to short at the higher levels here between 4,175 and 4,200. This is an interesting short area. Even if we manage later to break through, you can set your stop loss pretty near, but it's an interesting level to take some shorts here for a swing trade. But because I mainly trade Nasdaq future, I will stick to my Nasdaq chart and watch the levels there and then trade the levels there. So on a 5-minute time frame, parabolic is showing a downtrend. ADX just crossed for a downtrend here. It's not a strong trend right now, but probably we can have the same movement like yesterday with CPI. Little sell-off on market open and then a rally to the upside. Let's see, pre-market high here was about 12,620 points, and the highs of yesterday is still in place here, 12,685 points. Do you think Palantir has turned the corner, or will it retest recent lows? So Palantir is an interesting stock because they had better than expected earnings. So I have the chart here, and you see we had a huge gap on the earnings here, but we just retested previous high points. So, and you see this, I had drawn a Fibonacci level here from the previous downturn, and you see that the 161 level, so the Fibonacci extension, was the previous high point, and it was the high point now again, the closing of yesterday. Therefore, we should normally pull back and maybe see slightly close here of the open gap, maybe back to $8, could happen. But the news were really good, the earnings were good, the outlook was good. But it depends on what the market is doing overall, but the gap is really huge. So probably we will see a partial gap close here, maybe back to the $8 area, and then take on more run to the upside if the market is rallying more. But you see, this was a big volume breakout here, so it's a good sign, but we didn't manage to go above the previous high points. So I would wait for the break, for a clear break, and a closing above previous high points before I would take any long decisions here. But I have the numbers here. Let's just bring up, I posted it on Discord, but I can show it for you again for Palantir. pretty interesting to see. They had good revenue numbers here. They are still negative because of the high operating expenses, so they have an operating loss of about 18 million. But you see here, gross profit margin is 79% margin. This is really good margin. 79% is not bad. So if they manage to lower their expenses, then they can be profitable really fast. So these are good numbers for the future of Palantir. And you see that the government number is not as high as expected. So they have also commercial revenues here, and this is also a good sign. Not relying solely on government revenue, but also commercial revenues here. It is a good sign that both are growing and the gross profit margin is really high for Palantir. So I can understand why the stock is rising, but on a technical basis, I would just wait for a clear breakout if I want to take on a long trade. Please go to back to $8. Yeah, sometimes you wish that the stock pulls back to get a second chance, but I would say in about 70 to 80% of the time you will get a second chance. So never run after a tram or a stock, because you will always get a second chance, and if it's not in Palantir, then it's another stock. You will always have a second chance on stock market. Not for exiting a trade, but for entering a trade. So never wait for a second chance to exit a trade. Always exit where you have planned to exit. So at least you should have a plan where to exit. But for an entry, if you miss an entry, so it's nothing, yeah, you will always have a second chance in another trade. Okay, so no movements here in Nasdaq. Still some time. Let's talk about the next news. So here for no, it's not here. It was here. For this week, we will have on Thursday, tomorrow, February 16th, building permits 1 hour before market opens. So I will try to live stream this as well for you, and let's see if the building permits are showing a cool down of the housing market, another cool down, or if the market is piling up again, because here you see the number is almost the same like previous months. Initial jobless claims, a weekly number, not so important. But here we can see the first signs of a cool down on the job market. So we haven't seen any signs right now. It was pretty strong the last week. And as well, Philadelphia Fed Manufacturing Index. So a lot of news tomorrow, which could again move the markets. And of course, PPI. This is more important, PPI, because here we have more inflation numbers, and this will probably move the market. So producer price index is even before consumer price index. So here we will see the outlook for the next CPI numbers, because at first the producers will higher or lower their prices, and then we will see the consumer prices rising or falling. So PPI is also important. Normally on PPI days we don't have as high movements as on CPI day, but there will be probably some movement today with all these news pre-market tomorrow. So I will try to live stream this for you. Friday, not really important news, but tomorrow will be important as well. And we had, before I forget it, we had Airbnb yesterday after closing with earnings. So Airbnb was reporting earnings pretty well. So I will just bring up the chart for you here. Chart. So you see we are trading higher pre-market here. I will just bring outside of regular trading hours. We see, let's just go on a lower time frame to see it a little bit better. You see here, this was the closing yesterday, and the high point was about 11% higher, and now we are still trading 8.5% higher than the closing yesterday. So the numbers were pretty good, higher than expected earnings per share and revenue, and the outlook was also good for Airbnb. But there's still some room to the upside if you look back where the stock is coming from. So this is a week chart here, weekly time frame. So here was the IPO, initial public offering, and we had highs of $220. So you see on a weekly time frame it is still downtrending. So lower highs, and lower lows here, but we just managed to break out of the sideways trading phase. So we have to wait for the closing of this week to close above this area here, above $130. Then it is a good sign, and probably a close here of this previous down gap here should be possible. So we already reached the high point here of $135.66 pre-market. So the gap is almost closed, but this should also happen while the market is open. So a retest here of the previous low point of $135, and then a pullback a little bit. Let's see if we can close above or below this important resistance level here. And if the stock manages to break out here, then it has clearly some upside potential here. Okay, this is Airbnb, and we had Upstart yesterday. Upstart was interesting because they were in a stock halt, so in a trading halt yesterday, right when the numbers came out. The numbers were better than expected in terms of earnings per share. They had a loss, but less loss than expected. Just go on an hourly time frame. No, 15-minute maybe is better. 15-minute time frame. Yeah, here we can see it. So the stock was halted right at the closing of the stock exchange when the news came out, because the outlook was really bad, 35% below expectations. And you see after the halt, the stock reopened here, went lower, made lows of $14.67. But then we closed this gap right away, went higher. And you see the closing of aftermarket here was $16.14. So it's not as worse as expected, but still down about 4%. And you see right now it's higher, 1.5% higher than the closing. Completely crazy sometimes what the stock market is doing. But yeah, I think that Upstart is really in some trouble, because they are not making money and they have a negative cash flow. So this is really bad for a startup, not having growing incomes. So this is a big issue for them. But the stock is highly shorted. So if we go to Finwith and look at the short float, then we will see the reason why it is rising here, because a lot of short sellers will have to cover if the stock is not dropping. You see here the short float is 40%, so this is pretty high, and really a high amount of short volume here, and the short ratio is 5 days. So if every short seller wants to cover on a normal average volume per day, then we need 5 days for all these 40% of short sellers to cover. So this can cause, of course, a lot of short squeeze potential to the upside, even if the numbers were completely bad. But yeah, there's a lot of short squeeze potential for Upstart. So if I would be in a short position right now, I would closely look at this chart, because 40% short interest is pretty high here. And you see this was a doji yesterday here. So we could potentially see a retest of the previous highs here, 23, 24, even on really bad numbers. So be cautious if you're trading Upstart. I didn't know Airbnb was able to turn a profit yet. Yeah, Airbnb is interesting because they are investing a lot, of course, like Amazon did. So they invested a lot of the cash flows back into the company. But I can show you the results here. Just a second. Just bring up the same chart for Airbnb like we had on Palantir. So then you will see the interesting thing here. Here's the income statement for Airbnb. You see the gross profit, 86% margin, really good margin, yeah, and an operating profit of 1.2 billion, operating expenses 1.3 billion, but the net profit of 1.2 billion, 42% margin. Pretty strong numbers, I would say. And yeah, this is really good for Airbnb, and especially the outlook was good for Airbnb, and therefore, yeah, a good sign for the stock to rise here. Yeah, you see here the numbers: revenue growth growth 29%, operating margin 43%, and yeah, pretty good numbers overall. Back to Upstart, so the same for Upstart. Let's just see Upstart. Where's my Upstart? Don't I have one for Upstart? So let's see. No, they didn't prepare for Upstart. So we don't have this nice chart for Upstart yet, but maybe I can show you tomorrow if they will produce one. I haven't seen it right now, but as soon as they will publish one, I can show it to you. But you can also look here on Twitter. They publish for all the earnings candidates, they publish normally these nice charts, so you will be able to see them and yeah, take your conclusions. So it's pretty nice to see everything just on one view, and I like them. So yeah, just follow App Economy Insights to have these nice charts here. Okay. Where do you find that data? It's pretty simple. You just have to Google. But sometimes I just read some articles and then I look for the sources or Google myself, and then I will find these interesting things I can use in my own live streams. Okay. What website were you on for Palantir income statement information? So you can use Earnings Whispers. So on Earnings Whispers you will see for all the companies having earnings. You can use it. So this is Earnings Whispers, and you can just enter the ticker symbol Palantir here, and then you will see the previous earnings and the probable next earnings. So here you see it's not confirmed yet, but the next earnings will be probably on May 15th. And if you go here, latest earnings per share, February 13th, you will see all the numbers. And yeah, so here are the numbers: 4 cents per share, revenue of 508 million, consensus was 3 cents per share on revenue of 506 million, so they were slightly above. And yeah, you can just read the numbers here, or just look on the investor relations website of Palantir and then look up the numbers right at the source of Palantir. Do you believe Wix expiration today will have great effect? Will affect the price? Any possibility we rocket to 23 after expiration? No, I don't think. I don't think that Wix will turn the market. So normally the market turns Wix and not Wix the market. So I think this is not possible. Normally we only see in Wix if there is a higher demand for puts. So if a lot of people want to be safe because there is some fear in the market, then we can see a rise of Wix. But normally we see an inverse correlation, not an inverse correlation to the market, because when the markets are dropping, we see an inverse correlation, so it was right. When the markets are dropping, we see that the Wix is rising. But last year there was some anomaly because we have seen the market dropping and Wix coming down. So this is pretty seldom and pretty rare, but it can happen. But normally we first see the market dropping and then the Wix is dropping. So the only reason why we should see a VIX rising is because there's some more demand for puts and because people want to be safe or on the safe side. But normally it takes some time. The market at first has to pull back some points, and then there is more demand for safety. And therefore I wouldn't expect the market to rise back to the VIX rise back to 23 level if there's not fear coming up. And therefore we have to reach these 12,800, 13,000 points first, in my opinion, and then drop from there before Wix will rise to higher levels. Okay, so I think we looked over all major aspects here, and Nasdaq is already turning here. So the lows from pre-market are holding and we are turning to the upside. So next target, pre-market high here, 12,620 points, 20 points to go right now. Back at the 12,600 level right now. yeah, let's see what happens on market open, if there is a sell-off at all, or if they will run to the upside immediately. So glad that I kept some of my longs. It's just a slight position, really small position, but I will keep them for 100 more points to the upside and then close it and wait for my short level to come. Open the first short at about 12,800 or a little bit higher, and then the rest on the move to the upside. Yeah, let's see how far we can go. It's still an uptrend here on a technical time frame, even if parabolic is showing a downtrend, but you see we can rise up to here, up to 12,850 points, and it would still, if we close below 12,850 points, it would still be showing signs of a downtrend, even if on a technical time frame with higher lows and higher highs, it is showing an uptrend. So sometimes the indicators can mislead because one is showing downtrend, one is showing uptrend, but you will have to take a decision. And this decision can also be not take a trade at all. So sometimes it's the best decision you can take, not go into it any trade, just watch the market and learn, or paper trade it. But when you want to make money, you will have to take a decision. This is the most important thing in trading, taking a decision. And the second most important thing is having a plan about where you enter, and more important, where you close a position. Not the closing in profit, but more for closing at a loss, because you need to cut your losses to stay profitable. So even if you have a high hit rate like I have 80 to 85% hit rate with my option trading style, but you will have to have a clear cut for your losses, because if you have not a level to cut your losses, you will lose. Even if with a high hit rate of 85%, you can lose money, because 15% losers can make more and produce more losses than the 85% winners. This is important. Not the hit rate alone is important for winning, but also how far you let your losers run. And not how far you let your winners run, but how far you let your losers run. This is really important, because you can cut winners early. This is not a big issue. Yeah, it's sometimes bad. You should let run your winners, of course, but it's not really bad, because if you have a high hit rate of 85%, you can cut your winners early. But the more important thing is to cut your losers early, because these will take from your profit. And this is important to keep in mind. So always be prepared for taking a decision. This is the most important thing in trading. Last questions for today, and then I can close out this live stream. You mentioned you are waiting for Nasdaq Future to reach the 12,800 level. Yes, I already said this last week. I think it was on Friday live streaming when we had the lows here, because I was expecting to reach the 20-day EMA, but we didn't get there. So it's just 25 points above we turned. So yeah, I wasn't able to catch it here with a long trade. I was in a little bit too early. But yeah, I managed to make some decent money the last 2 trading days, and I hope the week will end green for me. On February 2nd, Nasdaq Future reached over 12,900. Do you think it can go to 12,900 level this time? Yes, of course it can. You see here, February 2nd, the high point was 12,950 points. So these were the big. This was the big earnings day here for Amazon, Apple, and Google. So of course we can retest here and even go higher, retest the 13,000 level. But for me, it is an area here. You see the 12,780 points where the Fibonacci level is sitting. So this is why I'm talking about the 12,000. Let's just zoom in. This is why I'm talking about the 12,800 level, because here the Fibonacci level is sitting 12,781 points. And you see this was the closing of February 7th. The closing was 12,776, but the high point was 12,818. So I want to short right at this area with the first shorts. Of course we can run higher, we can retest the highs. But probably if we retest, we will have another chance for a new downtrend. And if not, then I will be stopped out right above the 13,000 level. So I will have 200 points of risk to the upside. But for the downside, I will have more than 300 points of margin, because my target is below 12,500. So this is an interesting risk to reward ratio. If your target is sitting more than 1.5 than what you lose, what you are willing to risk here. So 200 points to the upside risk, but to the downside, minimum 300 points, better maybe 500 points. So 12,300 here, this area, 12,400, 12,300 could be an interesting area, as you have seen. So we could go into a sideways trading phase here. This is a broader sideways trading phase. This could be about 700 points sideways trading phase before we decide to break out to the upside or to the downside. So there is some room if you short at the higher levels here in this resistance area, what I would call it. And therefore 12,800 level, and even more if we reach 12,950, 13,000 level, I would short more, and I would be stopped out right above 13,000. So 13,040 points, I will be out of this trade. I will close out the losses. But if we go below 12,500, I will close out for some wins. So this is also interesting for a swing trade here. But like always, do your own due diligence. Don't trade after me. It's just my own opinion. It's just for entertainment purposes what I do here for you. Okay, hope you had some nice insights. Wish you a nice trading Wednesday. We will see us tomorrow. If you haven't done so far, please consider subscribing to my channel, and of course like my live stream. Like my live stream. We will see us tomorrow again. Goodbye.